Hey everybody, glad to be learning with you today as we continue our studies of Masechet Brachot and begin the third Mishnah in the first chapter. So let's take a quick review at some information that we've previously studied. We learned some important terms like Tzedek Kochavim, the time when 3 stars appear in the sky. That is the time when Kohanim go out to eat their truma, and the earliest time for saying Shema at night. We also studied some other important terms like Amud HaShachar, the first rays of light, the first rays that appear in the horizon as night turns to day. And that is the latest time, according to everybody, for saying evening Shema. Another term we learned was Netzachama, sunrise, which is when the sun officially appears in the horizon. And that's a term and a time that we learned about in the second Mishnah. When we put that all together, when we talk about evening Shema, the earliest time is Tzedek Kochavim for everybody. And according to Rabbi Eliezer, you have from Tzedek Kochavim until the end of the first Hashmura. You'll recall that Chachamim give you a little bit more time, from Tzedek Kochavim all the way until Chatzot, midnight. And Rabban Gamliel gave the most time, from Tzedek Kochavim all the way until Amud HaShachar. When we look at the earliest time and the latest time to say morning Shema, so we came up with some different figures to how to define when those times are. The first had to do with Techelet, which is the blue strand which appears on some people's talitot. That is a turquoise or bluish color. And the Mishnah introduces us to another color known as Karti, which is a greenish color. And in the Mishnah, the opinion of Tanna Kama informed us that the earliest time to say morning Shema was when you can tell the difference between Techelet and Lavan, whereas the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer informed us that the earliest time occurs a little bit later, when you can tell the difference between Techelet and Karti, when more light is available in the sky. But according to both Rabbi Eliezer and Tanna Kama, you have until sunrise to say morning Shema. Rabbi Yoshua gives you a little bit more time, 3 hours past sunrise as a deadline. So when you put it all together, it looks like this. The earliest time for saying morning Shema, according to Tanna Kama, is when you can tell the difference between Techelet and Lavan. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the earliest time occurs a little bit later in the morning. You'd have to wait longer until you can tell the difference between Techelet and Karti. But both agree that you have until Netzachama, sunrise, to say morning Shema. Rabbi Yehoshua extends that deadline 3 hours and says you have until 3 hours past sunrise. The Mishnah doesn't say this, but we can infer and understand that Rabbi Yehoshua holds like Rabbi Eliezer's opinion for the starting time, when you can tell the difference between green and blue. So now let's take a look at the third Mishnah here and look at some use of vocabulary. If I were to tell you that the following quarterback, Nick Foles, has a sick arm, you would infer from that statement that he has a great arm and not that his arm is sick. And that's what we mean when we say literal versus figurative. Literal is the literal meaning of a word. Figurative is the non-literal meaning of the word. And whether words should be taken literally or figuratively, literally or not literally, is the question of the third Mishnah here. The Torah tells us in Sefer Devarim that you should recite Shema uvishoch becha and uvkumecha. Now, if you take that phrase literally, uvishoch becha, it would mean when you lie down, the way that a person actually lies down, the manner of lying down, of lying on one's back. And if you take the phrase uvekumecha literally, it would mean when you actually get up, referring to the act of standing, of rising. But if you take the words not literally, if you take them figuratively, uvishach b'cha and uvkumecha don't refer to actions, but to times of the day. Uvishach b'cha, the time when a person lies down, in other words, night, and uvkumecha, the time when a person normally gets up, in other words, the day. And whether or not you take that literal or figurative meaning is the basis of the machloket, of the argument between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai takes a literal view. Uveshach b'cha and uvkumecha refers to the way a person should say Shema. At night, a person should be lying down, and during the day, a person should be rising up. Beit Hillel, on the other hand, looks at it differently. He doesn't care the way you do it, You could be standing, you could be sitting, you could be lying on your back, you could be walking. All he cares about is that you're doing it at the right time. And that's, to him, what these words mean. Uvishach b'cha v'kumecha, the time of day. So when we get back together in class, we'll have an opportunity to look at this machloket a little more carefully and to take some of the concepts that we learned in the first two Mishnayot and apply them to some real-life situations. Looking forward to learning with you when we return.